Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. And thank you for joining Shaded's Ramadan series where we're extracting the beautiful lessons from the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Today's lesson is the final lesson of Ramadan. And today's lesson is extremely important and crucial for me and you. And it's titled True Tawakkul. With all the unexpected events taking place in Yusuf alayhi salam's life, hope is one thing that he held on to. His hope and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what exactly got him through. From the well to the palace, even in the cell of the prison. In fact, if you can remember, it was revealed to him while he was in the depths of the well that he would one day inform his brothers of their actions while they were unaware of who he was. Now that time has come for another promise of Allah to be fulfilled. But carrying out his duty as the treasurer in the years of famine that had struck Egypt and afflicted the masses, even the surrounding areas of Egypt, Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers were affected, and they once arrived from their village to seek help for their own families. They had no idea that the minister of the land whom they were relying on was the same vulnerable child that they once got rid of and put in a well just left for death. Yusuf alayhi salam recognized them immediately. 10 handsome brothers as one unit, wearing similar clothing and speaking with a distinct dialect. He did not disclose his identity to them in this occasion, though he was full of mixed emotions, and he was certain that he would be tempted to do so, but he refrained in doing so. The custom was that for each person who came in, they would receive a camel's load of provisions to help their families through these days of hardship. And Yusuf alayhi salam, however, realized his beloved brother, his younger brother, Benjamin, was missing. And Yusuf and Benjamin shared the same mother, making them brothers in a full extent, which is why they were always so close to one another. So Yusuf alayhi salam had a different mother than the 10 brothers from their father Yaqub alayhi salam. As well as this, Benjamin remained loyal to Yusuf alayhi salam, and he never was involved in the plot against Yusuf alayhi salam. Now Yusuf alayhi salam suggested to his older brothers that if they wanted another whole load, they should bring him. And this was yet another intelligent move from someone who longed to be reunited with his brother and his father. The brothers were determined to convince their father Yaqub alayhi salam, who understandably was extremely hesitant in allowing Benjamin to go with them, as he remembered when he allowed Yusuf alayhi salam to go with them what had happened. So after taking a pledge from all of his sons that they would return with no mishaps, and after telling them to enter, he started telling them, enter into Egypt separately from different gates. Here Yaqub alayhi salam wanted to rid the evil eye from his sons, as they were 10 handsome strong men, and he wanted them to enter from different gates instead of entering as one large group. Yaqub alayhi salam says, in him I put my trust, Tawakkul, and in him let the faithful put their trust. Here in this surah, Yaqub alayhi salam is talking about Tawakkul and how he himself has full trust in Allah, and he entrusts Allah with all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with. And he says, let the faithful put their trust in Allah as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala announces his love for the people of Tawakkul. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves al-mutawakkilin, those who put their trust in him. Where he says in the Quran, when you have decided on a course of action, put your trust in Allah. Have tawakkul in Allah. Surely Allah loves those who put their trust in him. Not only this, but Allah says he is sufficient for those who have tawakkul in him. Allah can do everything for us. He can help us in every way, whether we know how or not. He is able to do all things. Do we put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So not only this, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He is sufficient for those who have tawakkul on Him. Whoever puts their trust in Allah, then He is sufficient for them. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shared with us in the Quran. Tawakkul in Allah can loosely be translated as having full hope in Him and placing one's reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, we can better understand what tawakkul means when we understand Allah's attribute al-wakil. We are taught to frequently recite the following: that Allah is sufficient for us and He is the best of guardians. When we say Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referred to as al-wakil. The term wakil is also a legal term which refers to the power of attorney. It is someone you trust and transfer responsibility to, knowing that they will make decisions on your behalf and in your best interests. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has our best interests in mind, and He is the one that we should truly put our affairs in His hands, because He is the best to dispose of our affairs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our wakil, meaning we transfer responsibility to Him, and Him alone to take care of us and to take care of the things that we are entrusted with, and He knows our best interests. In other words, He is our guardian, He is our protector, and always has our back. There is a famous narration in the Sunan of Imam al-Tirmidhi, in which we are told, tie your camel, then have tawakkul on Allah. Now, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, tie your camel, we can understand this today as lock your vehicle, lock your car. A person who has misunderstood tawakkul will think that they'll leave their vehicle unlocked, their windows down, and have all their valuable belongings on display with not locking the car at all, thinking that this is tawakkul, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of my things. But the reality is that's the wrong understanding of tawakkul. They will say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look after my car and my possessions, and that is really nothing, there's nothing to worry about. But the reality is Allah is still requiring us to act and to do our part, then depend on Allah and trust Allah. Such individuals don't actually have tawakkul. Instead, they have something called tamanni, which is they have a false hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The true meaning of tawakkul is that you do whatever you can in your power and your strength throughout your knowledge to protect yourself, to do what is right, and then you leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, we put our windows up, we take our valuables and with us, or we hide them in the vehicle. We lock the car, and then we have tawakkul on Allah. Then we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take care of our affairs for us. Even if something were to happen, we can still find solace in knowing that we did what we could to protect and prevent this from happening, and that the rest was up to Allah. That's the true decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So taking from the means of this world does not negate our tawakkul. It doesn't negate it at all. Rather, part of tawakkul is exerting our efforts, then leaving the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah still wants us to work. He wants us to acknowledge that we have to make our efforts to do the right thing at the right time, then depend solely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the results. This is found in the example of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, who after taking the pledge from his sons and asking them to enter Egypt separately from different gates, then leaves the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After that, there's nothing in our hands. The rest is in the hands of Allah. By doing so, he wanted to ward off any harm from these 11 handsome men who would be traveling collectively. He did what was in his capability. This is what was in the capability of Yaqub alayhi salam. This is what he was capable of, and this is what he did. And then he left, and he knew that after they left and they walked out of their home, that his hands are tied and he has no control of what happens to them after that. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam did the same. He did the exact same as Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, as he made the necessary moves to be reunited with his family. Then had tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, tawakkul is an integral part of our faith, and correctly understanding and applying it will help us navigate through this world and what happens to us in it. And then we understand this is how we get through the difficulties that we face, or all the things that we experience in life, is that we need to understand that Allah is our wakil. He is the one that we trust, and He is the one that we turn to. And yes, we get through life under His supervision, which is the supervision of our protector and our guardian, Al-Wakil. So have tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be with you, helping you and carrying you along the way. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this Ramadan from us, and to utilize our efforts and to reward our efforts in a means to forgiving our shortcomings and elevating our status. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our fasts and accept our prayers and accept our qiyam and our charity. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our recitation of the Quran and all the times that we did in remembering Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow our hearts to always be purified and to be enlightened by His nur. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant our tongues moistness of His remembrance, and that we remember Him often throughout the day and throughout the night. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ballighna Laylatul Qadr, and to give us the effort and the reward of witnessing the night of power, and to make us of those that He writes it for us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us forgiveness, as He is the pardoner and He loves to pardon. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pardon us and our parents and our loved ones from all of our shortcomings. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always open a pathway of blessing and khair towards Him, that we love Him and we fear Him, and we're always hopeful of His mercy. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who trust Him and always turn to Him for guidance. And we ask Him, the disposer of our affairs, to dispose of our affairs and to protect us, our families and our ummah. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I just really want to take this time to thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying tuned with these beautiful reminders that we're taking from Surah Yusuf. We will be continuing with the lessons, as they're more than 28, but I really want to hear your thoughts. Please, if you enjoyed the series, like the session, comment your reflections, and share it with others so they can benefit as well. Please stay tuned, and you will see a lot of beautiful gems coming out from this channel. Like it, subscribe, and share it with others.